All right, what's going on everyone? Sam here from Lake Pro Tackle. Guys, today's video we're going to be going over some of my favorite early summer baits. You know, this year's kind of been very strange. You know, the weather's been very inconsistent. Water levels have been very inconsistent around the country. For those of you up north, y'all are finally thawing out, so these baits might not be the perfect ones for the situation you're in, but for my southern states, this is for y'all. Weather's been very odd. You know, fish are still bedding in some places, but also a lot of the fish are post-spawn getting out on offshore structures such as ledges and stuff, offshore cover like brush piles. And we're going to talk about my 5 favorite baits to target some of these bigger class fish that are already moved out. Kicking it off, guys, you know, all the stuff can be found at lakeprotackle.com. And make sure to keep up with our social media, Instagram and Facebook at Lake Pro Tackle. Today we just did a big drop on the Megabass 110 plus ones, plus twos, and juniors for the GLXS Spawn Cherry and the Northern Secret. Those literally sold out in about 5 minutes, so thank you to everyone who got your hands on some of those. It was a very successful drop. We're looking forward to doing it again. Go ahead and just hop into some of my favorite lures here. You know, first up, we're just gonna start with the moving baits, and you know, one of the baits that gets talked about a lot in the wintertime and the summertime, mainly the wintertime by the guys over at Tactical Bassin, is going to be this guy right here. This is gonna be the Tactical DD Crank. And they talk about speed cranking it a lot. And you know, the speed cranking technique is a very good technique to get a lot of bites and generate a lot more bites during the winter time when those fish aren't as aggressive and don't want to chase as much. So, you know, this guy right here, the Tactical DD crankbait, to me overall is one of the better crankbaits on the market. You know, it's got a very solid rattle in it. It doesn't put off a lot of sound, but it puts off a lot of water. And what I really like about it is you can fish it from generally about any water depth. On the box it says 0 to 18 foot. This is a 75 millimeter bait, weighs 3/4 of an ounce. And one of the big reasons why I like it is because it gets down to that 18-foot range on the right line. So typically I'm gonna be targeting a lot of my early summer fish anywhere from around 8 to around 16 to 18 foot. So around the 8 to 18 foot range, they're gonna be off the secondary points, out on main lake stuff, and deeper cruising around the river channel. So that's why I chose this as my #1 crankbait to go with. And the color here is gonna be Blue Chartreuse number 13. It's a very bright color. It gets the fish's attention. And you can still definitely speed crank this. I generally will slow down just a hair, I mean just barely, from typically what I'm doing in the wintertime with it. So guys, #1, the Tactical DD Crank by River to Sea. That's gonna be probably my first choice. The next choice for me is going to be a 6-tenths Cloud 9. This one right here, let me see if I can get you a good view of that one, kind of blown out by the light there. Yeah, but this guy right here, Cloud 9 C10, is gonna be a great bait to get down to that same depth range. It says 8 to 12 foot, so it's gonna be a little bit shallower than that Tactical DD. This is gonna be called Blue Chartreuse Shad, and I'm gonna be choosing that color for the same reasons I chose the River to Sea one, is that it just gets the fish's attention. You know, something about the chartreuse and blueback down in the southern region of the United States, you know, Tennessee River Chain, Texas, Florida even, they just seem to react to this brighter color a lot more than other colors. Now this bait here compared to the Tactical DD Crank, I didn't mention this, it has a little bit tighter wobble than something like this. This bill on the C10 has a very wide bill at the front, so this bait has a very, very wide tracking action depending on where it goes. You know, I really like to fish these on 10-pound line if I can get away with it. If I'm fishing a brush pile, something that has a lot of cover, that can scratch up my line a lot, I'll throw it on 12. It won't dive as deep on 12-pound line compared to 10-pound line. But you know, if I can get away with it, 10-pound is gonna be my favorite line to go with this. And as for the Tactical DD, I'll go back to that here. Typically gonna be 12, might go down to 10 depending on what I'm fishing. If I find a hard spot that they're on, which is a very key piece of structure that they can get on, you know, hard spots, shell beds and stuff, I will definitely try to go down to 10 when I can. Next up, the last hard bait is going to be this guy right here. This is a Zimmer glide bait. This is the Instigator 8-inch, and you know what's great about this bait, I've talked about it a lot on the channel here, is it has the swiveling hook joints. So whenever those fish get the hook, and they try to spit the lure, they don't have as much leverage as they thrash around. That hook can swivel around, and it makes for a better landing ratio. So the reason why I like to throw this and the time of day I like to throw this is going to be very dependent on the weather conditions. If the weather is very high skies, not a cloud in the sky, I'm typically going to reserve this towards the afternoon period of the day. If it's very cloudy and there's a little bit of wind in the morning, I'm going to be throwing it bright and early. You know, it's all weather dependent, and I guess it's really fish dependent too. If those fish are going to be moving in on those areas that you're fishing, depending if they're pushing up bait. You know, this is a great shad spawn lure early in the morning. Not even, doesn't have to be a shad spawn, but if that bait is being pushed up really early in the morning, this is a great way to get the fish's attention. If you have forward-facing sonar, guys, and you're fishing a brush pile in around that 15-foot range, 15 foot, if you think about it, it's not that deep. You know, it's going to be shorter or less of a distance than most of your boats that you're fishing out of. You know, if you're fishing out of a 17-foot boat, imagine this bait sitting, you know, in that water column. You know, it's not that deep. These big baits have a lot of drawing power. Another great one is going to be the Spro KBD, the Spro Chad Shad, and you know, we don't know exactly when we're getting more of those in, but we will keep you updated, and we're probably going to be doing a big drop on those, so keep up with us on social media. Again, Lake Pro Tackle, guys. But that one right there, it's great for getting bites, and generating fish to get them going. It definitely charges them up and gets them, you know, in the mood to go eat. So even if you don't catch them on this lure here, you can throw one of the other baits down there and hopefully they'll react to it, kind of be primed for it. So this one here, I'm going to be throwing it on around 17 to 20 pound line. Here in Texas, we've got a bunch of stumps, got a bunch of trees, got nasty zebra mussels, and I definitely feel more comfortable throwing it on a heavier line. Now, the rod, it's up to you. I like a 7'6" or bigger, medium heavy to heavy rod, depending if it's a swim bait specific rod or if it's gonna be just your standard all-purpose rod. But that's kind of what I like to throw it on. All right, next up, one of my favorites is going to be the Denny Brauer structure jig. And this color here is going to be a very bluegill color. It kind of looks like a cry as well. It's got some green pumpkin, some orange in it. And I'm going to match that up with a Rage chunk. If you haven't seen these before, these are really cool. What's cool about them is that they are not quite a full Rage craw, so you're not paying for the extra plastic in the body, but it's got the same claws, it's got the same plastic in it. And this color here is going to be one of my favorite ones to throw. This is going to be the amber green and black flake. Now the amber green and black flake is great because it's a very translucent color. It's not quite watermelon, but it's going to be closer to green pumpkin. And that's why I'm matching it up with this guy here. This one's going to have more of a watermelon / green pumpkin mixture in that skirt, so it goes very well with this here. So these two as a combo, I'm going to be dragging it around points, dragging it up trees, going to be just pulling it along when the bite gets tough. Last up, these right here, these are going to be the Zoom Mag 2s. This guy is in plum, and the reason I like the Mag 2s over the old monsters is that the Mag 2s have a slimmer body. You know, a lot of the fish this time of the year, they're getting off that post spawn, they're moving out, and they're looking for a good meal. So these Mag 2s are going to be a decent size, you know, not terribly big. It's still a very skinny profile, easy to throw. So if you aren't used to throwing Texas rig like big old worm, don't worry. These don't put off too much drag in the water. You don't need a terribly big weight to fish them. I think the Mag 2 is going to be one of my favorite worms. You know, the power worm, 7-inch power worm is going to be another good one. This one just has a little bit more length, a little bit more of a meal for those bass to go and get. But, you know, plum is going to be a great one, blue fleck, black and blue. As those fish move out into deeper water, you can definitely start playing with your colors a little more. Typically, I'm going to be throwing this on around a 3/8 ounce weight. I usually don't go over ½ ounce for something like this. There's just not as much plastic that, you know, I think the more plastic you put on a lure, the heavier the weight. But so this one here, it doesn't have a lot of weight on it, so I don't need that big of a weight to get it down there to stick to the bottom. So those are my top 5 lures, guys. The Mag 2s, C10, Tactical DD Crank, the jig with the Rage chunks, and the Instigator glide bait. So I hope you enjoyed this video. All the lures you can find at lakeprotackle.com. It's going to be linked below. If you want to come check out the store, go click on that link. It'll send you a map to link you right here to Lake Pro Tackle. Come see us. Tim and I are always willing to talk to y'all about just about anything you want to talk about. If you're looking for a new rod, reel, or tackle, we can set you up with that. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.